All right, hello everyone. This is our fourth episode of How Live. Here with me today we've got Surter or Bart.
Hi everyone.
Who is our senior producer. We just got into a discussion on how you got to the senior level, but
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but
right, okay. We're
I'm happy.
Are you right?
Yeah.
It's just a name on the screen. It's not for real.
No,
Don't
it's
worry
very
about it.
important.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
We're as I said, it's the fourth episode of Home of Wargamers Live, and we've got a lot of stuff to show you guys. We have been working on a lot of content for this episode, and more specifically, we're gonna show you close combat for the first time. So that's gonna be towards the end of the stream, of course. At the beginning, we're gonna give you a little bit of an explanation of what just happened in the last month or so within the company, and we'll move to a game announcement, which is always part of the stream somehow, and then we're going to show you close combat, the bloody first for the first time, as Bart is the senior producer on the game, and then move to the Q&A section after that. We're going to take about an hour. You know the rules. You send us over the questions in a chat during the stream, and then we'll try and answer all of the questions at the end of the stream. So we can group all the questions in one place. All right. So let's go on for the first thing. Of course, the big announcement last week was the release of Field of Glory: Wolves at the Gate. The game released with a lot of interesting promotions around the whole Field of Glory franchise, which unfortunately just ended 2 minutes ago, which because of course it's over the weekend on Steam, so, and it's ending on the Monday after. So but Wolves at the Gate is out. We've got a very, very good reception from our fans. It's a game that's really adding a lot of layers to the product. Of course, it adds a lot of new units. We've got, I think, something like over 75 new army lists, 55 new units, 19 new factions. It's huge, and it also adds bridges into sort of an era of the ancient history that's very much to do with bridging it to the medieval. So it's giving a hint of the future of the franchise as well, which is of course something we want to keep you interested about. And it's also an interesting bridge for us, because as you know, Field of Glory Empires is releasing in a few weeks now. We don't have a date yet. We'll announce the date next week, but this is also important because it's adding refreshing the franchise, and also adding to the product IP for us. As we said, Field of Glory Empires is releasing in a few weeks' time. It's a game that we're really, really proud about. I have to say, personally, we've been following what's happening with the competition with Imperator, of course. We're really proud of what Field of Glory Empires is, how Field of Glory Empires is shaping up. We've got a lot in-house. We know that the game is solid and a really, really valid contestant for being the best game out there in the genre. We are focusing this week on a challenge. That's the third challenge we're launching. This is of course the last one. Field of Glory Empires has now showed its full potential by actually showcasing the integration with the battle system. Lionheart X10, one of the most popular strategy game YouTuber, has released a video over the weekend with a specific focus on that, explaining how Field of Glory Empires links into the Field of Glory game for playing the battles, the tactical battles. It's been really, really well received. I'm very proud of the game, and I have to say that as we move towards release, we really are convinced that this game is gonna score very highly. In terms of the challenge, the third challenge, we are given the task as playing as Antigonos and playing battles against Macedonia, the Seleucus, and Ptolemus, and also with very, very strict victory conditions. It's becoming pretty hard, of course, because we are now in the third challenge, and so it's also pretty long. It's about 50 turns, I think. All the map is playable, and of course we've got integration with the battle system. So as you see, it's becoming really, really interesting. So watch out for the videos out there for the challenge number 3, releasing in the next few weeks as we approach release. And next week, I think around midweek, we're gonna finally announce the release date. As we moved forward, as you know, we have showed last month we showed Panzer Corps 2 gameplay. In the meantime, we've also opened a beta, so it's now officially open. You can subscribe to the beta. We're going to launch the beta in just a few weeks time. The game is now at a stage where it is fully playable. We can really taste the whole experience of the game. So make sure you tap into that. It's going to be interesting. Panzer Corps 2 is again at a stage of development where we can safely say that we could release it this year. We're still deciding based on the beta and how that goes, the exact time frame. And of course, if we have enough feedback and depending on the feedback we'll have, we decide what to do with the release date. So we don't have a firm release date for it yet, but we're looking forward to seeing what the beta testers have in as a feedback, so we can then roll back and see what are the next steps in the development cycle. As I said, we have also a few news items to cover. First one, of course, is we've just released a first dev diary for Neverdark. This a game I'm pretty proud of, because this is the first game we've announced in our Home of Wargamers events. We've just launched the first dev diary, which means that developers are now fully into giving out more information about the game. We're approaching a stage where we can capture more screenshots, we can capture more footage, so we can definitely give you more information about where the game is heading. Neverdark is the first dev diary you can find on the site and on Steam as well, of course. And we're in the process of integrating a lot of new features, and I think within the next month or so we're going to show you actual live gameplay, so that you can really understand what the game's about and how it's developing. So watch out for that. And as I said, we've got an announcement today. We've got a big announcement. A big announcement means that for us it means a game that we really think that is going to be a AAA game for us. And although it's an expected announcement and people are expecting this game to release sometime, we didn't properly announce it yet. So it's really pride that I can announce you that Strategic Command World War I is in development. It's the third in the franchise, of course, in the new iterations of the franchise, and Bart is actually producing Strategic Command as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, Bart, tell us a bit more about World War I.
Right, so as you said, Strategic Command 3 World War I is going to be the next one in the Strategic Command series. So it's based on the proven technology of the Strategic Command War in Europe and World of Wargames. And these have been developed, and those of you who own the games or are part of our community will know, with a lot of love, but also a lot of post-release support. So we've seen a lot of updates trickling in, a lot of improvements to the core engine, but also to the gameplay rules. And all of these will be taken into consideration when moving on to the World War I setting. And obviously, World War I changes quite a bit to the game, other than different countries will have different technologies, different units, different ways that combat work to make it a little bit more static and recreate that trench warfare dynamic that you would find on the Western Front specifically. And it's going to be quite dynamic as well, with different powers interacting at different times or joining the war at different points in time. So it's quite a dynamic game, and it makes use of all these improvements that we've had with the that we've made with the previous installments in the series. So I don't know if there are any questions on that. Or
well, Strategic Command, last year we launched World War, which was a bit of a bet for us, because for Fury Software as well, because we were coming to a stage where we didn't know how the heritage of the old Strategic Command was, if it was still fresh and so on.
Yep.
What I found out is that we really found a lot of new players for World at War, for the franchise. It's a game that did very, very well for us. I honestly think that this is probably one of the most successful war game that was released in the recent years. So I'm very proud that World War 1 is releasing now, because it's going to be an interesting step into the future for the franchise. World War 1 has always traditionally been one of the most successful games in the franchise. So
yeah, exactly. It's the one with arguably one of the more passionate fan bases still when we look at the classic installments of the Strategic Command franchise. So it will be great to give them the opportunity to experience Strategic Command with all the improvements we've made over the years.
So, Bart, when are we planning release date for Strategic Command World 1? Can you say anything about it, or?
So we can't give you a concrete date. I mean, we're well on our way to get it done, and we're trying to get it either end of this year or early next year. So that's sort of the window what we're aiming for currently.
So we're going to approach beta soon, right?
We're going to be approaching beta pretty soon. What will most likely happen is that toward the end of this month, we would be ready for let's say a small alpha. So we invite some of the more experienced Strategic Command players, some of those that helped us out with World at War and with War in Europe, and to get them to do the first bit of testing. And if that proves to be solid well enough, then we expand with a full beta announcement.
All right. Yeah, I think for any of you who are not really familiar with the Strategic Command franchise, there's plenty of opportunities to actually tap into the franchise, because we've got the Strategic Command classic games out there, and the new ones. So there's plenty of opportunities to actually understand a bit more about what this game style is bringing. It's sort of a mix between a light war game and a deep strategic experience.
Yeah, for those that are really into the deep simulation, there's a lot to experience there. And at the same time, if you prefer the bit of a lighter approach, you can do that as well, but you'll rely more on events that pop up, that will help you to guide the game in historic path, really. And that will be the same thing that we're going to bring to the World War 1 game.
Yeah, I mean, World War 1 is perfect for an event-based experience, so absolutely. As you said, there's probably going to be a lot of questions about World War 1, so if you've got any question, just post them on the chat, and we'll try and address these towards the end of the stream. Without further ado, we shall move on to Close Combat then. Right, Close Combat the Bloody First. A little bit of an introduction. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
The game started development a long time ago. We moved from the Unity engine to the new engine, a totally new engine. So we decided to rewrite the game twice, basically, which is why it's taking such a long time. For us, we as we own the Close Combat franchise, we really wanted this first into the new era of the Close Combat series to be as perfect as possible. So that's why it's taking such a long time. It's not over yet. We're really working super hard to make this game as big as we can. It's we picked a subject that's really going to the roots of what Close Combat is. Morale, management of your troop, progression, campaign. There's everything with the Bloody First. So, Bart, can you give us a quick introduction of what the Bloody First is going to be about.
Right, so Close Combat: The Bloody First, for those who are completely uninitiated, is a real-time tactical simulation of squad-based combat with some combined arms being there. So it's a series that goes back a long time, and this will be the first time that we bring it into the new generation, really. And with the Bloody First, you take on the role of the commander of the Bloody First Division, the 1st US Infantry Division, and you lead your troops basically through North Africa, Sicily, and Normandy. So we have 3 distinct theaters present in the game.
Which is a new thing, right?
Which is a new thing. The others were usually much more focused. For example, the latest Close Combat we did before was Gateway to Khan, which was very much focused on the British involvement in Normandy. So this will be much broader. You'll be engaging... so we got the Germans and the US, but we also have the Italians present. So that shakes things up quite a bit.
And obviously, I can see that there's going to be some jokes about Italian troops coming up very soon.
And obviously the maps are going to be very, very different, because the Normandy type map is very, very different from a Tunisia style map.
All right, yeah.
And that's also a little bit where, some of the delays come from, because we're making a system that is working with all those different scenarios, different gameplay types that you might have.
All right. So we've got, I think, 4 bits of gameplay to show you guys. Some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger, but it's going to be an interesting starting point to show you some basic elements. We're not going to show all of it and not going to show all of the new stuff that's in the game, but we really want to sort of focus on very specific things. And the first thing we want to show you guys is the force selection and the force and unit selection. So let's run the first video, and Bart's going to comment on it.
Right. So here we're looking at the start of a battle, really. So the preparation for the battle itself. So we're getting a little bit of a briefing, like what's going on here, what's happening, what can you expect, and what are your main objectives. And that will help you get an idea of what the battle is about. Then you get more details about the forces present, the relative size of your force compared to that of your enemy, whether or not there is off-map artillery support or airstrikes. You can get a look at the map itself to see the tactical situation, to see how you might want to deploy your forces and what your, where potential fields of fire are going to be useful, and where you want to deploy your troops. And once you've got an idea of that, you can start deploying your troops or selecting your troops. And the first thing I'm doing here is getting rid of all my troops, because I'm going to use this opportunity to get a force from scratch. And I'm going to set up a fairly standard platoon. So we are going to be selecting a platoon HQ and some additional units with there. You can see the force list to the right. So these are all the troops I can select, and if I hover over them I get a little bit more information. You see I'm choosing a platoon HQ with different BAR units and rifle squads. The rifle squads have the rifle grenades, which are quite useful actually, and the BAR units obviously bring a BAR, which is great for laying down suppressive fire or going on the offensive. So on top of that, I got a couple of slots left to pick my force, so I'm picking up an MG, which is again great for having that suppression. And I think later here I'm also picking a mortar, which is very good for providing cover fire or attacking specific areas. Obviously using indirect fire can be very useful. So that consists of the main force, and then a separate thing is the support units, and these can, switch every now and then, whereas the main force you're going to take with you from mission to mission. So for the support units, I'm going to pick another MG, which is always a useful thing, and I'm going to pick an AMP squad, which is armed with carbines and some additional explosives. So they're going to be great for a battle where you expect to engage in short range, or where you expect to engage, perhaps on an urban type map. So next I'm going to customize some of my units with additional equipment. I'm giving a radio here to a mortar squad and an additional BAR to my MG, and they're going to provide additional firepower for the MG, and for the mortar squad they're going to make sure that the mortar is always going to be in contact with HQ, so you never get the out of command penalty. The other thing is I'm giving some temporary assignments to some of my squads here. So for 2 of my rifle squads, I'm taking out 1 unit to form a dedicated sharpshooter unit, so that gives me not an extra infantryman, but a little bit more control. So I'm splitting off units for different units. And last thing I do here is I'm splitting off an assault team which is very good for taking buildings or taking enclosed fortified locations, because they bring the submachine gun, they bring additional smoke grenades. So that's how I'm preparing for this particular battle.
Let's going back to what you just said, Bart, and
yeah, it went quite rapid. I
yeah,
understand.
it did. Yeah, you were very fast. So just recap a little bit of things, and maybe we can rerun the video on the background if needed. But can you just give us an idea of what is going to be familiar to existing close combat players and what is going to be sort of super new and never seen before?
So the familiar thing for close combat players is the distinction between your main force and your support units.
Right.
Because that's something that we've seen in previous close combat games. The new part here is the additional equipment you might give them and the temporary assignments. That's something we haven't seen recently in close combat games. So that they allow you to shake things up a little bit more. For example, if your squad has a couple of extra bazookas, you might want to equip your infantry with additional bazookas if you know you're going to encounter enemy armor.
Right. So how much of this decision-making process is based on what you see as information, and how much is it based on just trial and error, and then go back and replay the mission?
There might be a little bit of trial and error, but mostly we do try and prepare you for the battle, saying what you can expect. It might not be 100% accurate, obviously, because intel isn't necessarily, but you know most of the time if you can expect enemy armor to be present, for example, in which case you might want to bring some anti-tank guns or bazookas, or some way to fight them. And the other thing is, since the campaign has a carryover, so each of your core force is going to carry over, your squads are going to carry over.
Right.
You want to take that into account as well. Do I need my elite troops for this battle? Do I need them now already, even though I know the enemy might have artillery waiting where they die needlessly? Or do I want to use some, cannon fodder? Might that be a better idea?
All right, so it really depends on how you're playing your mission. Is it something is it a one-off, or is it part of a campaign? And can you elaborate a bit on that? Is the whole game a campaign, or how do you split the game
so
into?
we're going to see a little bit more of that in the later videos, but generally speaking, you can play individual battles. Obviously that's something you can do. You can play a campaign where you carry over your troops from battle to battle. So if you do that, you want to train your guys up, make sure the guys with experience survive, because they might bring additional firepower later on. And that is something that happens. So you fight a couple of rounds over a single map until you completely clear the enemy off the map, where they give up, or you lose. Obviously, that's an opportunity as well. And then you move to the next map in the thing. So it can be that you're gaining ground and then are being pushed back to a previous map where you have to dig in and defend again.
Right.
So, and then again, you will pick a different type of force, because you'll be a defending force rather than an attacking one.
How would you say the difficulty level is within range of is it expert close combat level, or is it we're trying to?
No, I think if you were comfortable with the previous close combat games, you can expect a similar difficulty level. We will have lower difficulty levels for those who might be new to the series, because especially the morale system is something that's rather unique to close combat. And we will have some harder difficulty levels for people who already thought the previous close combat games were perhaps a bit too easy after a lot of practice. So we're trying to make sure there's a little bit for everyone. Yeah,
to put everyone's mind at peace, we're really working hard on the AI and the pathfinding. It's something that we're really focusing a lot on. Yep. We know that the previous close combats had some issues in that respect. So there's going to be a lot of focus on that in these aspects of the game. One of the things that we're jumping into actual, in battle now. One of the things I wanted to really say is that we really try to capture the real close combat feel, right? So it's not something we're, hey, because we moved to full 3D, we're gonna revolutionize it and make it, super different. We really want to capture that feel. Yeah. So that's what players will expect, right?
Exactly. It's still going to be very much a simulation, so tactics over micro, and it's still, you're going to see that same moving your squads around, finding good positions to fire from.
All right. Right, so let's move to the battle and see what we have to expect.
Yeah. So this is part, we're a little bit into the battle here. This is actually the battle that I was previously preparing for, so you can see the similar mini-map. And my goal here is to take that position up on the hill with the house there. And so far there hasn't been any contact yet with the enemy. I formed a little assault squad together with the temporary assault team that I set up previously. They have the Thompson, they have the smoke grenades, so they're great for close combat. And I'm going to use them together with the AMP squad and the other detachment of the BAR squad to try and take that building. So what I'm going to do first is I'm trying to see here where can I potentially deploy my smoke grenades, where they would, do the most, make the most useful. But I'm interrupted by some enemy infantry that are coming up. I do have cover fire from my own, so my flanks are fairly secure. So they can deal with that for the most part, but it does mean that for me I need to hurry if I want to make my move. So I got my guys sneaking up the ridge there, waiting to get into position to throw some smoke grenades, and then we're going to try and run in there. So that's what you're seeing me do here. There are different types of orders. Those who are familiar with close combat will be fairly familiar with this menu as well, the way you give orders and the different stances that you can give your troops. So we got the 3 guys sneaking up, and the other guys there with the green icon are hiding in ambush, trying not to be seen, trying not to catch any fire. The other thing I'm doing here is I'm assigning one of my mortar teams to lay down suppressing fire on what I suspect will be a point of enemy resistance. So I expect the enemy will start firing on me as soon as I come over that hilltop. So doing some suppressive fire and then preparing a smoke grenade as well to provide further cover. We see Italian infantry moving in here to flank me, but my guys are quite well armed for close combat, so we're going to get the first shots and we're going to take them out before they can do too much harm. So we got the smoke deployed over there. You can see it next to the building, and I'm ordering my guys to run into the building as quickly as they can. They will catch some fire while doing so, obviously, but hopefully with the suppressing fire, with the mortar fire, with the smoke, enough of them will survive to take up defensive positions. There's one particularly nasty position over there to the top right that I'm not really covered from, but that seems to be the only one, so I'm good otherwise. Though my initial team that I'm selecting here over right now, that was panicked and is out of control at the moment, so they're not going to be able to join the actual assault. They've been suppressed by enemy fire. So that's a little bit of an example of how you can go about trying to take a fortified location, of how you can try and take a certain hilltop. You don't have to do it this way, obviously. There are a lot of other opportunities or a lot of other ways or strategies, also depending on the map and your situation and your force layout. But I thought this could give people a little bit of an introduction of what this close combat is about and how it works.
Yeah, Bart, one of the things that came out pretty clearly from this first insight in the game is it was moving pretty fast,
yeah.
Right? And I think that that's something that players should expect on how does the pace work.
There is a couple of things that are worth noting here. I picked this battle because it's a very small one. This is one of the smallest battles we got here. It's very tactical, very quick. So most battles won't be as quick as this, but generally speaking, you can expect that the Bloody First will be on normal speed, will be as fast as the older close combats on fast speed. So it's a little bit faster paced, but you can still reduce the game speed if you prefer the more classic style. And in addition, there's still the active pause. So at any moment you can pause the game, give out orders, and then let it run again. All
right. Okay. We've seen it from quite far above, and what are the zoom levels and what are we expecting from from the 3D engine? What can you do with the 3D engine?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, actually, because the 3D engine brings us a lot in terms of accuracy, because it's now so much easier to not just model different heights, but simulate them. What that means is they can physically block bullets if they're being fired inaccurately. They can physically, they literally change the direct line of sight and line of fire of your different units. So that has a huge impact in general on how the game calculates and simulates different engagements. On top of that, obviously, it is, again, with this far away zoom level, it's not as easy to see, but when a little bit more zoomed in, you can much easier identify different heights yourself. We got some tools as well to help with that. We got contour lines for heights. We got some other tools to check line of fire. But it's much easier to read the map than it was. Also because, and again, it's something I'm not really doing here because I wanted to keep it sort of stable. You can rotate the map as well fully. So that, again, will give you a much easier time reading the map, reading what's happening. But most importantly, it allows us to much more accurately simulate the actual firefights, lines of fire, line of sight.
One of the things that, of course, gets the biggest criticism on the old close combats is that if you're not familiar with what's happening, you might see it's confusing because it's hard to notice what's going on. It's hard to see where units are. What are we doing in terms of that specifically?
Yeah, we're trying to again, while not completely stepping away from the old close combat UI model, we're trying to vastly improve upon it. So you might have seen a couple of symbols out there that you, as a first-time viewer, you might not recognize, but we got incoming fire indicators, for example. So say you have a unit that's being shot at, it might not see exactly who's shooting on them, but it knows, well, the fire came from that side. So that's represented.
Right.
So as a player, we're being fired upon from the north,
all right,
as an example. We got indicators to see how much cover an individual has in a particular location. We have detailed information on what a individual soldier, even within the squad, is doing. So you can interrogate now if you have your squad, like, this guy's panicking, this guy's still really willing to fight. And we're trying to present this as well as we possibly can. There might be some tweaks, there might be some changes further down the road. That also depends on the beta feedback that we're getting. But that's the aim.
all right. One of the things that just to link back to what you were showing the force selection earlier on, would you say that the mission will play in a massively different way if you've selected different units, and how does that impact your...
Yeah, for sure. So for example, what I did here was I tried to go for an infiltration type of tactic, right? So small units armed with small grenades, submachine guns. I could have picked a bunch of additional mortars and just pound them at the start of the mission and then do a mass assault when they're weakened.
Right.
That would have given me a very different mission, just purely based on a different force selection.
That's very interesting. The next screen we're going to look at, it's a brief one, and is about the post-battle analysis. So let's take a look and then elaborate a bit on it.
Certainly. So this is the end of the battle. We got feedback on what we did. We can the front lines have moved a fair bit, so our territory is now all the way up until the middle of the point that we just captured. We can see the different casualties for both sides, and we see how well we did. And we can interrogate that in detail by checking on each individual soldier, how their stats have been altered by this. Did they gain morale? Did they lose morale? Were they injured? Did they gain particular rewards? And that's going to be important when you do a carryover campaign. So this was part of an operation. So after this particular battle, me being on the offensive, I have to choose what to do next. Do I go for another hasty attack to capitalize on my earlier victory? Do I go for a prepared attack, giving more time for rest and refit, or even a night attack, which is more of a surprise attack type of thing? And that also gives you additional tactics and strategy to work with, and it also depends on how well you did in the previous battle. So that's the way that the battles carry over, and that's the way, the meta campaign, how that's structured.
Yeah, so you just answered one of the questions I've seen in the chat. Are there going to be any night missions? So you actually choose if you want to play a mission or not.
Exactly. So the way the game works is that you can fight multiple rounds of combat on a single map, and during that, the time of day changes. So that alters the lighting and therefore also the line of sight of your units. So you can fight, an evening battle on the map, and then the next battle on the same map. The front lines might have shifted, but it turns night, and you're suddenly fighting a night battle.
All right.
So
is that something completely new for a close combat series?
I think it is. They're so varied and large that it's hard to say for sure, but it's not just that some maps are night maps. It's every map can be a night map or a day map or a noon map or a morning It just completely depends on the time of day you're actually fighting on it.
All right, okay. And you pick the time based on your
Well,
ability or current forces? Or...
yeah, so generally speaking, it's the attacker. So depending on, where you are in the campaign, if you're on the attack or not, that has the initiative, that choose this is when the battle happens. So that's what you saw in the previous video, where I could choose like do a hasty attack, where there's perhaps only 1 hour in between battles, or prepare one for the next morning, or do a night attack. So that dictates what time of day you're going to be fighting.
Okay. The next video we are showing is a longer video. We are jumping into a full battle with some specific events. So let's jump on it and then.
Yeah, sure. This was essentially me being told that people wanted more gameplay, so
yeah, they
that's,
do. Yeah,
that's
they do.
that's this. So this is not really to highlight any particular feature of the game or any particular aspect. This is just me playing a battle and in Normandy. So it's a very different style map. We can see the hedgerows. We can see a farmhouse over next to the street over there, which is going to be the central point of this particular battle. And the enemy is going to try and attack me and take it from me. I've mostly infantry, but I got some armored units as well. So I got 3 tanks available to me, and they're going to be providing mostly fire support. They're not ideal for hedgerow combat, but against infantry, even the machine guns are very, very useful as well. So we can see the Germans advancing on my location. I'm trying to shoot at them from behind the hedgerows, so I'm very difficult to spot for them. So it's very hard for them to return fire at this point while they are advancing. So that's always going to be the tricky part. They are closing in though, and you can see they're closing in from different locations and all moving towards that farmhouse. So that's going to be the main point of contention here. Meanwhile, I'm moving in some of my reserves, bringing them up to the front to get some more firepower on there, and just trying to do as much damage before they come close enough to really have some accurate directed fire. And this is where I actually spotted the enemy Marder, which is a anti-tank unit that the Germans have, and it's very lethal, so it's going to be very dangerous for my tanks. And it's in a position where it's going to be very, very hard to flank it. So that's going to be fairly dangerous to deal with. So meanwhile, we see actually the AI deploying some smoke to block my line of sight, line of fire, so they can move in close. They're bringing in more units. They're really going for it. More smoke being deployed next to the building now. And the guys inside the building, they're basically fighting for their lives. They're under a lot of stress. They're certainly the heroes of my battle here. I would give them some huge awards if I could. So they are starting to suffer some casualties, and you can see I'm also moving back my tank, because tanks can be very, very vulnerable to close-up infantry. They might toss grenades at it, they might damage it. So it's not that they would be completely destroyed, but they can definitely take some damage. So I'm going to move them back slightly and just again position them so that their machine guns can do most of the firing. So it looks now that the Germans are bringing up their anti-tank gun, which is going to be fairly dangerous for me, so I need to find a way to respond to it. Again, it's very difficult terrain for armored vehicles, so it's going to be hard to flank it. So more combat going on. If people are wondering what all those blue cones mean, they're basically stating that the unit is on a defend order in that particular direction, so that's where the fire is being directed. The green circles around the individuals indicate the level of cover, and again, these are things you can turn on and off and tweak yourself based on how you want to experience the game. So I'm trying to move up one of my tanks to engage the anti-tank gun, and I want to engage it, and I'm using one of my infantry guys who were, well, let's assume they were volunteers, to draw away some fire from my tank, so to get the attention of the AT gun. So they're going to be running in, getting close, and trying to move in there. So here's some rotating of the map showcase. Again, that's something that's very new to the series, and thanks to the 3D engine we got here. So I move my guns, I'm hiding them, and I'm going to sneak up close. The Marder is an unprotected vehicle, So I'm hoping to get up close and get some grenades, but in doing so I get flanked, and an enemy MG42 is just killing, I think, 4 of my guys instantly. So that was a very, very bloody affair. Other than that, the guys in the house are still holding, so overall I'm quite happy, and I got some additional rifle grenades trying to suppress the mortar. My tank is not getting a good aim though at the enemy mortar, so I struggle to take it out. So that's going to be rather tricky. And actually, my tank gets hit here, so we can just see it blow up. The crew is trying to evacuate. We can see the tank catching fire, and I lost my engagement with the mortar, which was this is probably the worst way to engage a thing like that. So a good lesson. Meanwhile, my infantry is managing to move up close though, and they're going to start tossing grenades at the mortar to try and disable it. So I got one guy over here who's the sole survivor of his squad, and I got a second squad coming in. One of the things worth noting though is that while this is happening, obviously the enemy is still trying to take that farmhouse, but my well-positioned machine guns are ensuring that that's very difficult for them to do. So they're taking a lot of casualties, and their morale is close to breaking, as you can see for the morale bar at the top of the screen. So now my grenades have actually successfully damaged the mortar so far that is tracked, so it can no longer rotate. And the mortar, it doesn't have a dedicated turret, so it's stuck facing one particular direction. So it's pretty safe now for my other tanks to move in and finish it off. So that was quite successful. While I'm doing that, I'm going to start moving up my troops more, perhaps getting ready for a counteroffensive. And we are, again, very close to breaking the enemy here and finishing the battle, or at least this particular round of this battle. So let's see if we can get the final shot in here. Still alive, unfortunately. There's still some enemies trying to take my central position, but there the mortar blows up, and that's pretty much the end of the enemy forces. So this was a little bit of a more casual battle, if you will, of what a battle could look like. Again, depending on your force selection, depending on your tactics or strategy or your objectives within the campaign, it might play out very, very differently for you. So you got the morale here of the enemy is broken. They're actually already retreating, so it's up to you now if you want to continue to move in and try and push up and gain some more ground before the battle actually finishes.
Yeah, one of the things, Bart, very interesting here is although close combat remains a game that's based on capturing objectives, and that's the goal of the single scenarios. For instance, this example of having a unit that's the core of the force of the enemy forces, that is the core of your action there, gives a lot of variety. So one of the questions was, are the maps hand built, or are they generated by the system? I think that's answering the question. So in order to have very specific things to do and to add variety to the game, we really wanted all the maps to be hand drawn.
Exactly. They are completely hand built, based on historical terrain as well, so we're really going for that history in it, and at the same time in such a way that they provide interesting challenges and different types of gameplay happening. The other thing worth mentioning is that even though they're handmade, they are dynamic, so damage you'll see in one battle will carry over into the next one. So the mortar that blew up just now might provide great cover for my troops as they advance in the next round.
All right, okay. How does that work? I mean, will you play more missions in the same battlefield, and how will that progress in the game?
Yeah, exactly. So generally speaking, you have a certain amount of time allotted to a specific operation. So you have this many hours to take as much ground as you can.
All right.
So while doing so, you're gonna replay the same map until you completely conquer it, or get kicked off completely, which can obviously happen as well. or until you or the enemy basically gives up on it, and then you move to the next map in the series, or the previous one if you're losing.
All
or
right.
you might be
Okay.
pushed back physically.
All right. Yeah. We've seen some tanks in action here.
Yeah.
You know, whilst the previous one was, you know, focused
Fully
on,
infantry, yeah.
Fully infantry. How many units and what's the variety of units you get in the game?
We got a huge amount of units. So obviously, you know, you got your different tanks. So you got for the US, you got your Shermans, your Stewarts. You got your mechanized troops. You have all these different half tracks that are going about with howitzers or with AT guns. If it was in World War II, there's a good chance it's here.
It's in the game.
Yeah. And the same goes obviously for the German forces and the Italian forces as well.
There's no jokes about the Italian forces yet.
Not yet. Well,
Not yet.
I'll leave that to the chat.
Okay.
Something about Italian tanks that are present.
One of the things is how big is this map compared to? Well, it's larger than the previous one.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
What's the kind of variety?
This
of
is
sizes?
more or less your average sized map.
Okay.
So we got some maps that are bigger, especially wider, because this is a fairly rectangular type of map, and the other one was really one of the smallest ones. So that's this could be your average battle really.
Okay. How long will it take to play? I mean, you've played about 10 minutes.
This particular video was about 8 minutes, but obviously, you know, I took out the deployment, the first orders, the things, and the actual finish of
All right.
it. So
it's about 15 minutes.
yeah,
per-
exactly.
yeah.
That's what you can expect for a battle.
Okay. Do we already know how many scenarios we'll have in the full game?
We do, but I don't know that from the top of my head, to be
Okay,
honest.
okay.
I don't know if we have that.
So just have an average number. Is it going to be like 15 per?
So
campaign?
we have we got 3 main theaters. So we got Sicily, or let's say them in order: Tunisia, Sicily, and Normandy, and each of them have about 3 or 4 operations. 4, I should say, and each of those have 3 to 4 maps.
Okay.
So that adds up
That's
very,
quite
very
a large.
quickly. Yeah,
game.
it's
Lot to
quite
do in the game.
significant.
Okay. One of the questions that popped up was, of course, about multiplayer. So can you give us some ideas on how multiplayer would work? Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be a live multiplayer similar to the previous close combat game. So you got a host. He selects the battle or operation that he wants to play, and somebody else can join in, and you can play that out together. Do your own force selection. Do your own battles.
Okay.
Fairly straightforward. We're really trying to make it work as fluent as we can with a lot of fallbacks. But so far it's been very fun testing it actually, because it really, playing against a human opponent makes you almost like paranoia about what he's doing. Especially we did some of the night battles themselves, which were really interesting, because you're just running around. Maybe he's going to try this. Maybe he's going to try that, and that adds a lot of dynamic to the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that lands perfectly for the type of gameplay, of course. So it's actually makes sense. For answering questions on when the game's releasing and so on. So I'll pick the question.
All right.
So right now we're in full beta. We're fully into beta testing. So the game is playable from beginning to end, or is it not?
Yeah. It is. I mean, you might again, it's in beta, so there might be the occasional issue with a carryover but it works. Yes.
Okay. So at the moment we're really focusing on some of the UI issues or UI improvements, I would say. I've seen a comment before. Brown troops on brown terrain. I can't see anything. Well, of course, that's stuff that we're working on. Line of sight. There's lots of little things that have to be addressed, but other than that, the game is actually fully playable.
Well, there's already. I mean, these are specific settings that I've been playing with, but already in the option screen. For example, you can give your units or all troops black outlines. You could do in the previous close combat game, so they'll stand out more.
All right.
If that's what you're after. So there are already a lot of options in the game and ways to improve it. But you're correct. It is something that we're really trying to nail for this particular entry.
Well, I think one of the questions was also referring to the AI and how we're planning to improve it based on previous games. I guess some of it you've already answered by saying about the 3D engine that solves a lot of a lot of issues. Of course, it poses a number of other issues, but what is it that we're focusing on the AI side?
Well, the most important thing is for the AI to make it know what it's trying to do. So because you can fight the same battle twice, one time you're attacking, the other time the AI is attacking, we've been working hard to teach the AI to understand when it is good time to attack. So it evaluates your its own strength compared to your perceived strength, for example, and it does that dynamically within a battle. So if you might take a point from your opponent, but it's a very small force that you took it with, like a token force, it will try and evaluate that and see if it can mount a counterattack in doing so. So it can even provide a very active type of defense rather than just digging in and waiting for you to drop by.
Right. A few questions from our official interviewer of the stream, I guess, Pixel464. He's after some information about modding tools. So what are we preparing for that?
Yeah, well, actually, it's one of these nice things that we switch the engines, because it's now running on the Archon engine, and people are familiar with the Archon engine. They know that a lot of modding can be done with it. We've seen it for the Field of Glory games, for example, where a lot of stuff has been happening. So you got all these scripts that are exposed to the player, and they can go in and start tweaking them.
More questions. Co-op against AI?
Not going to be on release. Maybe later, but
Okay.
I don't want to promise anything, really.
Come on, promise stuff.
It's really... The core focus is going to be 1v1 type of gameplay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you dig troops into defenses?
Yes, as in, it's not an active thing that you can do during a battle, because it's assumed there's no time for it when the battles actually start. But in a game where you're on the defensive and you've been in control of that territory, or assumed to have control of that territory before the battle started, you're allowed to dig your troops in. So they will be deployed in trenches, for example. So that's definitely a thing, and that can be very, very powerful.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that we've been asked is what we're planning to do for the future of the series. Now, of course, my first answer is let's release this one, because it's already ahead of a headache. Not for just limitedly for the marketing side, but of course for development. Of course, we are building an engine. We're building a game that's as modular as possible, that will allow us to do both in the future, both DLCs and standalone games. Now, every good programmer will, of the team will tell you that now that we've got the game, it's going to be very, very easy to make DLCs and new games. Now, I don't believe that for a second, but this will this will give us a lot of more flexibility for the future. That's for sure. So we won't leave you another 5 years in the wait for the next one. That's for sure. Another question. Some other questions. Is there destruction of the houses if you bomb them with mortars, etc.?
They can be damaged. Yes, they can't be completely destroyed. So we got some depending on the terrain type, it can be destroyed completely. So for example, your stone walls might be completely destroyed when a tank drive over it. So there's that type of damage. Craters will appear as well, and they will also carry over into the next round of a battle, should that happen.
In the flow of the game, we've seen a lot to do with the campaigns, the carryover, the different, what are the other, more, quick ways of playing the game? Is it like single scenarios?
So you can play an individual battle. So for example, the battle we just now played, you can play that as part of a campaign,
all right,
or as an individual battle.
And do you unlock them, or is it?
No, they're all going to be available for the player immediately. So I mean, there are different sizes that you can play. So you can play an individual battle. You can play a small operation, which is like 4 different maps basically that you fight over. Then you got the, let's say, regional campaigns. So you do all of the operations in Tunisia, or all of the operations in Sicily, or you do all of the operations in Normandy. and finally you got the overarching grand campaign, which is you start in Tunisia and you're going to fight all the way
All right.
to the.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Another question came up. Is the campaign playable in multiplayer?
It is.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's going to take a lot of time. It currently is.
What type of commands can units be given?
Right, so it depends a little bit on the unit type, obviously, because different unit type will have different particularities. But generally speaking, you can order your guys to move somewhere very, very fast, so on the double, or sneak somewhere, in which case they're trying not to be seen while they're moving there. Then you can give them orders to fire at a particular location. You can give them orders to go on the defensive, or to go into ambush mode, in which case they're going to try and hide and really only start firing when they have a very, very good shot at the enemy. Then there are more particular types of things that you can do. So for example, some units, like we saw in one of the scenarios, have smoke grenades. So you can do a special order to deploy your smoke grenades, or use other particular equipment for your orders.
Any new commands for certain units, like more specific ones? That's the question came up. Pixel 464. I can't leave him without an answer.
Which particular unit I would want to say, but
let's move to something else and then go back. Maybe
okay,
Pixel can give us more details. Is there a view shed tool to identify line of sight area from a specific position?
Yes, there is, but well, it's one of those things that we're still working out how to best do it.
All right.
Because we're at a point where it's almost too accurate, which sounds strange, but it can give you surprising results. So it's still a work in progress.
Can you change the camera view angle?
Yes, you can. So currently there are two modes for camera. So there's the angle that I'm playing on right now, and there's the classic top-down mode. So that's the current situation of it.
Any particular reason why you like playing with this camera position?
I like this one compared to the top-down one because it gives me a better idea of the different height differences. In a fully top-down view, it's almost like the 2D game, which some of the close combat veterans might really, really enjoy and appreciate. This is something that allows me to read the terrain better and easier.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess we've covered most of the questions. I guess Pixel is now giving more details. I guess I meant any comments that are new, different than prior CC games.
Not particularly, because to be honest, the prior CC games, they had all the basic stuff nailed down. So, firing on a location or not firing or sneaking somewhere. So I can't think of anything that.
Good idea for a DLC.
Yeah,
like
additional
new stupid commands,
yeah.
like dance.
Yeah, we can do some dances in there. I think that'd be nice.
Well, I guess that we're kind of done with the questions, and we've covered a lot of ground. Although not everything, of course. We'll be back with more very soon. But this gives you an idea of what Close Combat Bloody Force is about. The idea that Close Combat releases this year has made a lot of people happy. You can wishlist the game on Steam, of course. You can visit our product page. You can subscribe to the newsletter. If you want to receive more news.
Subscribe to the beta if you haven't done already.
Absolutely, subscribe to the beta. That's a good idea because we're gonna draw in more people as we go.
Yep.
So yeah, if you want to have a look, first look into the game, just feel free to do that. As I said, we've got the product page up and the Steam product page up as well. This is of course a release we're taking a lot of care on. So all the comments, all the feedback you want to give after playing the game on the beta, we'll take into account. This means really that the developers are listening to everyone's feedback. Bart, thanks a lot for coming over.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great fun.
I think the Slytherin bar is always open to more colleagues coming from Epsom. We are going to wrap this up. Next up is going to be August 1st. I think also August 1st. Sorry, July 1st. Sorry, is the next one. We're still nailing down the agenda for what we're going to show, but as you know, there's a lot of games coming out, and there's more to be announced. So make sure that you tune in a month's time. I'll still try to convince my colleagues to do twice a month, but they're really against it. If you've got more questions, if you've got more stuff to ask, just drop by the forums or ask on the Steam community groups. And we'll see you next month. Thanks for coming.
All right, thank you guys.